Okay, let's dive in. Have you ever been in a conversation where you felt like your words were just bouncing off? Or
Mhm.
maybe you felt totally misunderstood, like you weren't even speaking the same language.
Oh, absolutely. That sense of disconnect, it's a really common experience. Very human.
It really is. We all crave that connection,
Oh,
to feel heard, understood.
definitely.
But bridging that gap, it's tricky. It's not magic. So today, our deep dive is into this really fascinating source that, well, it unpacks the secrets to real connection.
Hmm.
And not just with techniques, but looking at the psychology behind it all.
Precisely. The source lays out 10 key principles.
Mhm.
And what's really compelling is how it links each one back to, solid psychological concepts.
Yeah.
So it's less about just learning rules and more about, well, understanding people, how we think, how we feel.
Like getting a backstage pass to the mind during a conversation. So our mission today, we're exploring these 10 points,
Right.
getting into the why, the psychology, and hopefully uncovering some practical stuff you can actually use.
Consider this your guided tour into the psychology of connection. You might start seeing your everyday chats, well, a bit differently.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's get started. So our source kicks off with something that sounds simple, but actually doing it. That's the hard part.
It really is. It's foundational.
Point number 1, listen until the end. The source really hammers this home. Let the other person finish. Don't interrupt. Why is that so vital, psychologically speaking?
Well, fundamentally, this is about active listening. And that's more than just, not talking.
Right.
It connects to really basic human needs. Think Maslow, the need for recognition, for understanding, belonging.
Okay.
When you truly listen without cutting in, you're basically signaling you matter. Your thoughts matter. Interrupting does the opposite.
Even if you think you know what they're going to say.
Especially then, perhaps.
Yeah.
It can feel like you're saying, my turn is more important than your complete thought.
Yeah.
It can immediately make someone feel dismissed, invalidated even.
Wow. So it's not just impolite. It's like a small psychological blow.
You could see it that way, yes.
Mm.
Letting them finish validates their whole experience,
Yeah.
their right to express it. That's how you build trust, create that safe space.
Yeah.
Just imagine trying to explain something complicated or maybe emotional,
Yeah.
and the other person keeps jumping in. How does that feel?
It's terrible. Frustrating.
Now compare it to someone just patiently letting you get it all out. Even the messy bits. The feeling of safety is just completely different.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It shifts the whole focus from my turn to your words. All right, point 2. Think from the other person's perspective, putting yourself in their shoes.
Yes, this is empathy, a cornerstone of social intelligence, as our source points out.
Empathy.
And it's not just sympathy feeling for them, it's trying to feel with them. There's even a neurological basis for this, potentially linked to mirror neurons.
Mirror neurons.
Yeah, these brain cells that seem to fire both when we do something and when we see someone else do it. Or feel something.
So if they're sad, a part of my brain might kind of mirror that sadness.
That's the general idea. Though the science is complex, it helps explain how we resonate. And our source notes, when someone feels you're being empathetic, they feel understood deeply. It creates this feeling the source calls a Johnkin, like profound sense of security, ease. Exactly. It lowers their defenses, makes them much more open to hearing you later. It's incredibly powerful.
Building security through empathy.
Yeah.
Okay. Point 3 moves beyond just words. Be mindful of expression and attitude, body language, tone,
Yeah.
that stuff.
Absolutely critical. Nonverbal communication. Our source brings up the classic idea, often linked to Maremian's rule.
Oh, I think I've heard of that.
Yeah. It suggests that when we communicate feelings or attitudes, the impact comes mostly from the nonverbals, like 55% visual face, posture, 38% vocal tone, pitch.
And the actual words?
Only about 7%.
7%. Seriously. So what I say is barely scratching the surface if emotions are involved.
That's the takeaway. And it highlights why congruence is key. If your words say one thing, sure, I'm listening. But your body screams another, crossed arms, eye rolling.
Yeah, you believe the body language.
Almost always. That mismatch creates confusion, distrust. People feel something's off, even if they can't pin it down. So being mindful means making sure your whole message, words, tone, body sings the same tune.
Fascinating. We're communicating so much without even realizing it. Okay, point 4 circles back to words, but how we deliver them. Speak clearly and concisely.
Right. This taps into cognitive load theory. Basically, our brains can only juggle so much information at once in working memory.
Like having too many apps open on your phone.
Exactly. If you use jargon, long, rambling sentences, too many ideas crammed together, you just overload the listener.
And they tune out.
Or they just can't process it effectively. It's hard to understand, hard to remember. Our source stresses that being clear and concise respects the listener's brain power. It makes your message easy to digest.
Makes sense. Efficient for everyone. Okay, point 5 is the other side of that coin. Observe the other person's reactions. Reading the room, or, well, the person.
This is all about social perception, a huge part of emotional intelligence, or EQ.
EQ.
High EQ means you're good at noticing and understanding emotions, yours and others. Observing reactions, tiny facial expressions, posture shifts, tone changes, lets you see how your message is landing in real time.
Picking up those subtle clues.
Precisely. Our source says this skill is vital for adapting. See confusion, clarify, sense resistance, maybe pause or try a different angle, see overwhelm, simplify.
It's like getting live feedback during the chat.
Exactly. It helps you stay connected, responsive, much more effective.
Live feedback, I like that. Okay, point 6 tackles a big one. Avoid negativity or criticism. Start positively. It's so easy to just shut down a conversation with criticism, isn't it?
It really is. This draws heavily on positive psychology and understanding defense mechanisms.
Defenses, like putting up a wall.
Exactly like that. When people feel attacked or criticized, even subtly, those psychological defenses go up. Automatically, unconsciously. It's self-protection. But that wall also blocks incoming information, especially anything that feels like a threat.
So even if I think it's constructive criticism.
It can still trigger the defenses, definitely, especially if it's the first thing out of your mouth. Our source suggests starting with acceptance. Acknowledge their view. Find common ground first.
Before you bring up your point?
Yes. It signals you're not an adversary, you see them. Then, maybe you can introduce a different idea. It bypasses the initial defensive reaction. Acceptance first. It opens the door.
That's a huge shift. Accept first. Okay. Then point 7 is about getting your side heard. Express your opinion honestly. How do you do that without triggering those same defenses?
This brings us to assertion theory. Assertive communication.
Being assertive, not aggressive.
Exactly. Our source positions assertiveness as that healthy balance. Not passive where you hide your feelings. Not aggressive where you trample on others. It's about respecting yourself and the other person.
A tricky balance. How do you actually do it?
A key tool highlighted by the source is using I messages.
iMessages.
Instead of saying you always interrupt me, which is accusatory, a you message guaranteed to raise defenses.
Right.
You frame it from your perspective. I feel frustrated when I'm interrupted because I lose my train of thought. See the difference?
Yeah. It's about my feeling and the impact on me, not blaming them.
Precisely. It owns your feeling, explains the why without attacking. It respects both sides. It's honest, but non-confrontational.
I feel X, 1 Y because Z. Okay, that's practical. Point 8, value timing. When you say it matters as much as what you say.
Oh, hugely. This ties into situational judgment and something called readiness theory. A person's psychological state, how focused they are, their mood, stress levels, changes constantly.
Right.
And that state drastically affects how well they can take in information.
So catching someone as they're running out the door for a serious talk, bad idea.
Terrible idea. Or when they're clearly stressed about work. Our source talks about assessing their who could say, their readiness, their receptiveness.
You get to say readiness.
Are they tired, distracted, upset? Is this the right place even? Choosing the right moment massively increases the odds your message actually lands properly. It respects their mental state right then.
Like checking if the soil's ready before planting. Okay. Point 9 is about making it a two-way street. Ask questions, don't just talk.
Yes. This emphasizes the bidirectional nature of communication. It's not a lecture. And psychologically, it connects strongly to interpersonal attraction, building rapport.
How so? Asking questions makes people like you more.
In a way, yes. When you ask genuine questions, you shift the focus onto them. It shows interest. It makes them feel seen, heard, valued, and feeling valued feels good. So they tend to feel more positively towards you. Our source also mentions the reciprocity of self-disclosure. When you show interest and they open up a bit by answering, it often encourages you to share in return and them to share more. Asking questions kicks off this positive cycle. It deepens the connection, builds trust, makes it feel shared.
Right, it feels more like a collaboration. Okay, last one, point 10. Improve vocabulary and expression. Choosing words carefully.
This links to linguistic intelligence, think Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences. Having a good vocabulary and being able to articulate clearly are just fundamental communication tools.
And the psychology behind that.
Precision reduces misunderstanding. Our source explains that when you have the right words, you can express subtle shades of meaning, complex emotions more accurately.
So they get what you really mean.
Exactly. Less ambiguity means fewer chances for misinterpretation, which is often where conflict starts. It helps you translate your internal world thoughts, feelings, into language the other person can decode effectively. What you intend aligns better with what they hear.
Wow. Okay, those 10 points: listening, empathy, nonverbals, clarity, observing, positivity, being assertive, timing, asking questions, and vocabulary. It's a really solid framework, all backed by psychology. So, bringing it all together, what's the big takeaway from our source?
I think the most empowering message is that effective communication isn't some fixed talent you're born with. It's absolutely a skill.
Something you can learn.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Something you can develop through practice. Our source emphasizes training across sort of three areas: cognition, how we think and understand; emotion, managing feelings; and behavior, the actual things we do and say.
Like building a muscle. The more you practice these things.
The stronger you get. And understanding the psychology behind it, as we've discussed, lifts it beyond just techniques. You start to appreciate what's really going on under the surface.
Yeah.
Communication becomes less about rules and more about, well, genuine ayin rikai, understanding people.
Ning and Reiki. That really changes the perspective, doesn't it? It's not just swapping words. It's this complex dance of needs, feelings, thoughts.
It fosters patience, I think. Curiosity about the person in front of you, not just about getting your own point across.
And applying these ideas, it's not about manipulation or winning. It's about building stronger connections, isn't it? Based on real understanding, creating those moments where you actually feel heard.
That's the goal. We really hope this deep dive gives you some useful things to think about, maybe some practical steps. As you go about your day, maybe just pick one thing. Like consciously trying to listen all the way to the end. Or using an iMessage next time you feel frustrated. Or just paying more attention to someone's expression. See if it changes anything for you.
Notice the timing. Ask one more question than usual.
See what happens. It's about applying that understanding.
Which brings us to a final thought to leave you with. If communication is fundamentally about understanding and connecting with these core human elements, needs, emotions, thoughts, how does getting better at this change not just your conversations, but maybe who you are in your relationships, at work, everywhere? Consider this. Maybe mastering communication is really about mastering the art of understanding people themselves.